On my birthday eve, my mom texted, "We used your tax refund to cover your sister's LA trip. She needed a break." Then added, "You don't really go out anyway." I just smiled, froze the refund routing, flagged the transfer, and reversed the withdrawal. At midnight, my sister's card got declined, and I was already logged off. I was sitting at my desk after work, half tired, half scrolling through my email when her text came in. "Mom, no greeting, no lead-in, just straight to the point. We used your tax credit to pay for your sister's trip to LA. She needed a break." Then another one came seconds later, like it was meant to soften the blow or justify it. "You're not going out anyway." I just stared at it. My brain didn't catch up at first. I read it again, then once more. My tax credit, the one I'd filed for. My return. They used it like it was theirs and they didn't even ask. For a few seconds, I couldn't move. Just sat there stunned. Then this weird sense of clarity hit me. It wasn't rage exactly. It was colder than that. Like something inside me stopped trying. Like a switch flipped. I stood up, walked to the cabinet, pulled out my backup laptop, and opened the financial portal I'd set up years ago when I started managing the family's paperwork. Dad never cared for it. Mom said it gave her a headache. My sister never knew the password. They'd forgotten I was still the admin. In less than 10 minutes, I froze the routing number linked to the tax credit. Reversed the pending payout to the travel account. Canceled the prepaid travel card assigned to my sister's trip. I flagged the entire transaction trail for manual review with the bank, citing unauthorized family access. It wasn't even a lie. Then I logged out permanently. She was supposed to land in LA the next day. Hotel booked, rental car reserved. All of it tied to that card. By the time she touched down, nothing would work. My phone started buzzing early. Calls from my sister, then Mom. I didn't answer. I made coffee, cooked eggs, ate in silence. The calls kept coming and I let them. I was finally enjoying something. They didn't see what they did as theft. That's the part that got me. They saw it as reallocating resources. Their way of saying, "You don't need this." She does because that's how it had always been. When I was 19 and had to drop out of school to help Dad cover the mortgage, I did it. When Mom needed $1,800 for surgery and their insurance wouldn't cover it, I opened a line of credit in my name. When my sister got laid off and needed her rent covered for just a month, I covered 3. No one ever paid me back. Every time I said nothing. Every time they acted like it was expected. But this time they didn't ask. They just took. And that made something in me stop. Not out of anger, out of survival. I knew if I didn't cut them off now, I'd be bled dry forever. So I let them panic. I let them sit in it. Because something new started that day. Not revenge. Not yet, but the beginning of it. They showed up at my place around noon. I saw them through the peephole. My sister pacing in front of the door, phone in one hand, rage barely contained. Mom stood a few feet back, arms crossed like she was at a funeral. I almost didn't open it, but I did. The moment the door cracked, my sister started yelling. Not asking, not confused, just pissed. She said she'd been stranded in LA like some broke idiot trying to check into a hotel that didn't recognize her card. She said it was unreal, pathetic, and spiteful. Every word sharper than the last. She wanted to know what the hell was wrong with me. I let her talk. I waited until she ran out of steam, then told her the money was mine. I never gave permission. She had no right to it, and neither did Mom. That's all I said. She blinked like I'd started speaking another language. Then she asked if I was serious, if I actually thought that tax refund was only mine. She reminded me that Mom had done my taxes, which was a lie I had. She said it was family money. Said I always paid, that I was the one who fixes things. That's when it hit me. She really believed that they all did. That my bank account was an extension of theirs, that I was their insurance policy, that I had no right to say no. I turned to Mom, hoping maybe she'd chime in and meant it was messed up, but she just stared quiet like this was beneath her, like I was the one being dramatic. I said it again, slower this time. I wasn't doing this anymore. I wasn't the fixer. I wasn't their bank. My sister stormed off first. Mom waited a few seconds, then followed, not saying a word. The last thing I heard was the car door slamming hard enough to echo through the lot. I locked the door and stood there for a while, not moving. It felt good. Not joyful, not triumphant, but clean, like something old and moldy had been finally ripped out of me. That night, I told my wife everything. I expected her to take my side, or at least understand the principle of it. She didn't. She said I was overreacting, that families share, that it wasn't about money, it was about support. I asked her what part of support meant stealing from someone and expecting a thank you. She said I was being selfish. Said if I cut off my family, it was only a matter of time before I cut off hers too. I didn't argue. I just let her speak. She went silent after that for 2 days. She barely looked at me. Then she packed a bag. Said she was staying with her sister until we figure out what's happening. What she meant was until I stopped drawing lines. She thought I'd beg. Thought I'd come crawling. Instead, I changed the locks the next morning. Then I spent the whole afternoon going through every financial tie I had. Shared accounts, automatic payments, anything linked to family. I deleted all of it. Closed accounts. Started fresh. Every account, every card, every access point was reset. I'd been sleepwalking through life, saying yes to people who saw me as a resource, not a person. No more. My phone lit up nonstop that week. Missed calls, texts, voicemails, ranging from guilt trips to full-on meltdowns. I didn't answer any of them. For the first time in a long time, I looked around my apartment and realized something. Everything in it was mine and nobody else had the keys. The Facebook post went up 5 days after I froze the car. I didn't even see at first. Mark from work sent me a screenshot. My sister had written some vague, dripping paragraph about betrayal from the people you'd give your life for, and finding strength after someone you love shows you who they really are. It was public. Her friends were commenting with hearts and hugs, the usual performative sympathy. One of them asked if she was okay. She replied, "Trying to be." He broke something in me. She never used my name, but everyone knew. The people who'd seen me pick her up from failed job interviews. The ones who'd watched me fix her car in the rain. I was now the villain in her little martyr's tale. I didn't respond. Not online, not in texts. Not when she called and left 2 voicemails back to back, one angry, one almost crying. I didn't reply when my cousin Nate messaged me asking, "What happened with your sister? She seems wrecked." I just wrote back, "Ask her." Then Mom texted. She asked if we could meet somewhere quiet. Said it wasn't about taking sides. She just wanted to talk. Against every instinct I had, I said yes. We met at this old diner near the park where they used to take us when we were kids. I got there 5 minutes early, but she was already sitting there alone, nursing a half-sea cold cup of tea. She looked tired, like she hadn't been sleeping well. I wasn't sure if it was guilt or just the burden of managing damage control. She started off with the same lines she'd always used when trying to smooth things over. Soft voice, careful words. Said she understood that I felt hurt, that it wasn't their intention to make me feel used. I nodded. Let her finish. I'd heard this tone after every time they crossed the line. It wasn't an apology. It was a performance. She said they assumed I'd be okay with it because I always had been. That's how she phrased it. Like my silence for years was some kind of agreement, like I was a bank account with an emotional buffer. I told her I wasn't angry anymore, that I wasn't lashing out. I was just done. That was the truth. She said she respected that, and I almost believed her. Then she asked if I'd be willing to help with a deposit on my sister's new apartment. Said she was trying to restart after LA and the landlord was giving her until the end of the month. Said she just needed a little help just to get over the hump. I looked at her dead in the eyes and said, "No, not I can't. Not, let me think about it. Just no." For a second, I saw it. Something shifted in her face. Not anger, not disappointment, just acceptance. Like for the first time, she realized I meant it. I wasn't to fall back anymore. She didn't argue. She just nodded, stirred her tea for a few seconds and said, "Okay." That word echoed in my head the whole drive home. The next 2 weeks were dead quiet. No texts, no calls, no birthday messages that month either. My phone didn't even light up with anything from Dad. I should have felt relief, but it didn't feel like peace. Felt like silence before a storm. It hit me one Thursday morning. A plain white envelope slid into my mailbox with a familiar handwriting on the front. My father. We hadn't spoken directly since last Christmas. He never called unless it was something big. I opened the letter and sat down on the couch. 3 pages. Page 1 was about family loyalty, about how men don't get to pick and choose when they show up, about how hard he worked to raise us, about sacrifice. Page 2 was about Mom. How she was hurting more than I understood. How my sister's situation had gotten worse. How I was leaving people behind when they needed me most. Page 3 was personal. It said I was letting bitterness eat away at everything good in me. That I was better than this and that I should step up. Before pride closes the door for good. He ended it with be better. I sat with that for a long time. Folded the letter, put it in the drawer under the sink where I keep all the things I'll probably never need again but can't throw away because I wanted to remember what they said when I stopped playing their game. This wasn't pride, and it sure as hell wasn't bitterness. This was the first time in my life I was telling them no and meaning it. It was mid-October when Mom called again. I didn't pick up, but her voicemail was different this time. She sounded calm, almost quiet, and asked if I could come by the house. Said she wanted to clear the air. She mentioned Dad would be home. So would my sister. I knew what that meant. This wasn't about clearing the air. It was about pressure. They tried the guilt, the silence, the Facebook theatrics. Now they wanted to sit down. The confrontation. I thought about ignoring it, but part of me wanted to see it through. Not because I thought anything would change, but because I needed to say it out loud to all of them, where they couldn't twist it or pretend they didn't hear me. The house looked exactly the same, but somehow older, like time had started to rot the corners. I knocked once. Mom opened the door without a word and stepped aside. My sister was already camped on the couch, scrolling through her phone like this was some kind of chore. Dad was in his recliner, arms crossed, eyes on the muted TV. No one looked at me when I walked in. No one offered me a seat, so I stood. Mom sat down at the edge of the love seat and looked up at me. We need to fix this. That's what she said. Simple, neutral, no accusations. No apology either. I let it be pass. Then I told them I didn't come to fix anything. I came to tell the truth once and then I'd be done. I said I wasn't their safety net anymore. That I wouldn't be paying off overdraft charges, booking surprise vacations, or pretending it was normal to watch my own finances burn while everyone else got what they wanted. I told them that every dollar I'd ever given them came with silence I never should have offered. And from now on, the answer was no. No to rent, no to bailouts, no to gas money, no to just until payday. My sister scoffed without looking up from her phone and said, "Wow, dramatic," Dad muttered. "Guess you think you're better than the rest of us now." I didn't respond because I wasn't there to explain. I was there to draw a line. I turned to Mom and said, "This wasn't about being better. It was about being done. And if they ever wanted a relationship with me again, it wouldn't be built on guilt or handouts." For a second, the room was silent. Then Mom stood up and walked past me toward the kitchen. She didn't say anything dramatic or begged me to stay. She just said as she walked, "I hear you." That was the only sentence in that house that felt real. I turned to leave. My sister didn't lift her eyes. Dad didn't move. It was like they were frozen in the roles they'd always played, and I was finally stepping out of the script. As I pulled out of the driveway, I checked my phone. One message from my sister. "You're not a saint. You're just selfish." I stared at the screen for a minute. Then I blocked her number. Not out of anger, out of clarity, because being selfish was finally starting to feel like freedom. Was almost starting to feel normal again. Mornings were quiet. Nights were mine. I was cooking for one, watching movies I actually wanted to watch, and no one was siphoning money from me through guilt or entitlement. I'd even started sketching again, something I hadn't done since college. For the first time in years, peace didn't feel temporary. Then the text came in. It was from my sister. "I know things are weird right now. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. Can you help with a $350 vet bill? Max is really sick." Max, her cat, The one I paid for after she told me she needed emotional support when her ex moved out. I remembered how she cried when I surprised her with him. Swore she'd never ask for anything again. That was the third time she said that. Maybe fourth. I read the message and just stared at it. Not because it shocked me, because it didn't. It was the same rhythm, same timing. She let the dust settle, waited for me to drop my guard, and came back with another emergency. I didn't respond. 12 hours later, she sent a follow-up. Franklin, please. He might need surgery. I don't know what else to do. Then a photo of Max in a carrier at the vet's office, eyes wide and scared. I sat with that for a while. I did care about the cat, but caring about him wasn't enough to walk back into the cage they built for me, and I knew how this story went. I'd pay the vet bill, then next month it'd be a tow, then a late fee, then groceries. Once the door cracked, it would stay open. So I left it on read. Later that day, I got a message from Mom. She's scared. You can be angry at her all you want, but don't punish the animal. Just this once, Franklin. This is different. Different, that word again. It always meant drop your boundaries just this one more time. I didn't reply to her either. But the next morning, someone knocked on my door. I looked through the peephole, already knowing it was my sister. She looked like she hadn't slept. Her hair was pulled into a lopsided bun. Hoodie half-zipped. Her phone clutched in her hand like it was holding her together. She didn't say anything right away. Just looked at me. Can I come in? I thought about saying no. I really did. But I stepped aside and let her pass. She didn't sit. She just stood there in the middle of my living room like a stranger trying to figure out where she was. I didn't come to fight. She said she told me she knew she'd messed up, that she took advantage, that she thought I'd always be there, and it didn't occur to her that I could walk away. She said she hated asking, but Max was all she had right now. Then she looked at me and asked again. Straight up. Can you help me? It should have felt different. She was being calm, honest. There was no yelling, no guilt-tripping, no manipulation. But even through all that, it still pointed in the same direction. She wasn't here to rebuild something. She was here to hold the pieces together long enough to borrow more time. I told her I was sorry about Max, that I really hoped he pulled through, but that I wasn't stepping back into that role. Not for her. Not for anyone. She didn't scream. She didn't curse. She didn't do anything theatrical. She just nodded once, then said, I don't know how to fix this. I said, that's not mine to fix. She left without another word. When the door closed, the silence that followed didn't feel satisfying. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't triumph. It just was. I didn't feel lighter, but I felt clear. And for me, that was enough. The silence didn't stay quiet. About 6 weeks after my sister stood in my living room asking for money, the next round of fallout started. Small but sharp. First came the letter. Another envelope with my dad's handwriting. All caps slanted like it was written faster than he thought. He didn't even bother opening with a greeting. Just launched straight in. He said they had to sell the boat. The one he swore was untouchable. The one I wasn't allowed to ride without supervision, even at 30. The one he'd said was for the grandkids someday, though we all knew that meant my sister's future kids, not mine. Turns out he co-signed a personal loan for her a few months back. One of those payday-style things with obscene interest. She didn't keep up with payments. And when it hit his account, the threat started. He panicked and sold the boat to stop the bleeding. He didn't ask me for money, but his last line wasn't subtle. This is what happens when family forgets what loyalty means. I folded it once slowly and dropped it in the kitchen drawer next to the other one. Not because I wanted to keep it, because I wanted to remember how far they'd go to shift blame. The next surprise came at work. My ex-wife. She showed up just before lunch, standing outside the building like she wasn't sure if she wanted to come in. I stepped outside, told her I only had a few minutes. She said that was fine. She said she missed me, that everything felt off since she left, that she thought time apart would make me see things differently, but it made her realize I'd always been the glue. Then she asked if we could talk properly somewhere quiet. We sat in her car. She didn't waste time. She asked if we could start over. Clean slate. Said she'd been thinking a lot about what marriage actually meant, and maybe we both hadn't understood it until now. I asked her if she missed me or the lifestyle I made easy. She didn't answer right away, then said both. I told her I wasn't angry, that I wished her well, but I wouldn't be that man again. Not for her, not for anyone. She got quiet, said I'd changed. I told her I'd finally started living like I mattered. She cried a little. Then she drove off without saying goodbye. 3 days later, my phone buzzed. A message from Mom. It wasn't a guilt trip. It wasn't about my sister. She just asked if I was coming to Thanksgiving this year. Said she was making the same dishes that Dad was doing, the turkey, that my sister would be there, but things would be kept respectful. I told her I wasn't coming. She paused, then said, I thought maybe we were past all this. I said, we're not at war. We're just not in the same story anymore. There was a long silence. Then she said something that actually hit me. You were right, Franklin. I didn't say anything. She went on, said she used to think I was selfish, that she thought my distance was punishment. But now she saw it clearly, that for years I'd carried weight none of them even noticed, that the things I did were never viewed as love, just expected. Then she said, you stopped because we didn't stop. That one stayed with me. She didn't ask me for money, didn't ask me to come by. She just said she hoped I was okay and that if I ever wanted to just talk, she'd be there. She hung up. I sat on the couch for a long time after that. Then came the last surprise, an email from my sister. Just a few sentences. She said Max was doing better, that she figured out the vet bill without me, that she didn't blame me anymore, but she didn't apologize either. She said she wasn't wired for that. She said, I don't expect us to be close again, but I get it now. That was it. No plea, no setup, no bait. And strangely, it felt like the most honest thing she'd ever sent me. Now it's been almost a year. My life is small, but it's mine. I don't have to check my bank account for other people's emergencies. I don't dread birthdays. I eat alone sometimes, but the silence isn't cold anymore. It's clean. I've learned that walking away doesn't always mean slamming a door. Sometimes it's just choosing not to open it again. They're still who they are. I just stopped volunteering to be part of it. And maybe that's what freedom really is. Not escape. Just no more transactions pretending to be love.